What's up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast. We are on episode number 27, and this one is going to feature Legends of Ultima. And I've gotten a whole bunch of messages from people asking me, "Hey, what do I think about Legends of Ultima? What are my thoughts and all that?" So, what people didn't know is I've been talking with Stimwalt, one of the developers for Legends of Ultima, for quite a while now, and I'm very happy that we finally get to link up and kind of discuss in depth. What is this project all about? Now, I will share with you. I did have some firsthand experience, and I want to preface this because I don't know, months, years on from now. This was the test center build, right? This isn't. I don't think this is the production build, but I did have firsthand experience. I got to go around to dungeons. I definitely got to get my feet wet, and so I do have some initial impressions and opinions. Stimwalt is a developer on the project, but he is also obviously a huge UO fan, and it's kind of cool to see his progression from UO player now all the way to developer, right? And to make this very clear, because this is something that's a little different, is I think there are some different legalities with using this engine for UO. I don't know, I'm obviously not a lawyer, so I don't know how that works, but I will say they're running this project as really like a nonprofit, right? Like it's not going to have a traditional, I think, cash shop that we see in other shards, right? And I'm not talking about pay to win, but just cosmetic stuff. I don't think they're going to have a lot of that like the other shards do. So some people may like that, some may not. But it's very interesting to see at its core, right? Who are the people that are designing this? So I want to give my initial impressions, and I want to also say this is my personal Mustache Gaming's impressions. I have nothing behind this other than my actual gameplay. I'll start off with a lot of the pros. They have absolutely replicated UO in a 3D engine. 100,000%, no doubt in my mind. You log in and you're going to say, okay, I'm in UO, right? You're going to say, got it, like no problem. So I think that's going to be a huge pro on this list. Is it is accurate. Now, I don't know if we broke down what era this is, but I think it's a bit mixed. I don't think, based on talking to Stimwalt, there was like a specific era they wanted to replicate. It was basically, here is UO 2.0 on a 3D engine, go, right? And this has been in development for, I think over 4 years. I don't remember, but it's been a while. So this thing's been worked on, for quite some time. The other pros, obviously, are going to be right off the bat, the graphics and really the overall performance. I'm running a 3080 card on my rig, 1440p, and I ran ultra settings, max FPS, no dips at all. We went into some dungeons, no problem. The new like spells that are cast, the summons, that kind of thing is very cool. It definitely brought a smile to my face, and I know it will for you guys because you're just like, damn, this is what I'm not gonna say all, but some people have been asking for, right? Man, I would really play UO again if it was 3D, or I could attract my friend to play because yeah, this is a 3D engine now, right? So it's very interesting. The other pros going down this list, I think, are the devs themselves is a huge pro that, at least, and I can speak for Stimwell because I talked to them, they are very passionate about this project. There are no ulterior motives other than to provide UO in this 3D setting, which quite frankly is just cool. I mean, there's no doubt this is cutting edge, next level. Now I'm gonna flip on the con side. I will say there are still bugs to be ironed out that I experienced in the test center. That's not a dig at all at them. It's just it is what it is. There's bugs, and I think they know that. No big surprise. They're still ironing out all the fine details. Got to remember bringing in a UO like code onto a new engine. I can't even imagine the undertaking because UO at its core is very complex. At least in my mind, it's not an easy system to either understand or probably even code. I don't know. But I would say that bugs. I didn't get to encounter NPCs on the test build. They weren't spawned yet, so I don't even say it's a con. It's just something I didn't experience. I will say my biggest con, and I think they're working on it, is the lighting. I've gotten that comment from a lot of other people too. When you get in there, the game's just a little bit darker, right, than what we remember, in our classic UO. Now, some may really like it. I liked it for about 5 minutes. Then I'm like, okay, I want to turn on the lights. I'm over it, right? So I know Stimwalt did say they are working on that to make it brighter. I don't know what the final build will have. I mean, this does launch again June 20th, 2021. So we'll kind of see how that all fleshes out because while yeah, it does add some risk and ooh, it's kind of dark and stuff. I personally probably will not have the patience to deal with that long term for me because I load up UO, it's just bright. I don't I mean I can turn off night side or whatever, right? And kind of, but I rarely do that. That's not something that drives me, that kind of environment. So I think they're going to work on that. That should be fine. The other potential con, that I'll put on there is really, this is to be seen, is the community. I am extremely curious what kind of community this is going to attract. Because some shards have, one of the most toxic communities, while other shards have the nice, you know what I'm saying? There's a very wide mix of classic UO shards. This one, I'm curious to see. I will tell you, in their Discord server alone, to give you guys some straight numbers and facts about this, there are almost 5,000 people total in their Discord. And as we speak, there's 1,000 online. Okay. My estimates, and this is again a speculation, I don't know. I would assume worldwide there's probably 10,000 UO players. Is my soft estimate. Playing OSI, private charge, whatever, right? Just globally. Out of that, I think if they could at least attract 1,000 people to this, it has a chance to be something special. Because my take, and this has always been my stance in day one, is population makes UO successful. Without population, I really don't care what systems you have, how good it looks. It feels dead, right? So I think, population is still a huge thing for people, and we've seen this even with a couple of new servers that are going to release. We're going to talk about that on another episode, but population is a huge part of UO. It makes it feel alive. It makes it feel special. Because a lot of times people ask me, "Hey, why do you play UO? Why are you doing this again?" And I'm like, man, I'm not doing it again. UO is just different every single experience. Am I going to get PK'd? Am I going to PK someone? Is someone going to steal my stuff? Am I going to die from a mob like an idiot? Do something stupid. It's always something different. That is the UO magic that we really don't find in other games that are on the rails. Now, upon talking with Stimwalt, and you'll kind of hear in this conversation, I think they have some really interesting things that are coming up that is different. It's not a replication of UO one for one, right? Like the skills are, of course, that, but there's going to be different events. There's some different, monsters and stuff. So there's a lot of different things that they're going to throw. And I think for the people that are going to play it, it's good. They're in for a treat. It's one of one, right? No one's really attempted this before. And there's been a lot of speculation of people like, oh, I would build a UO 2.0, kind of water cooler talk, right? It never comes to fruition, but here it is. So I'm extremely interested in the community adaptation to this. my people have been asking, am I going to play it? When I played the test center, it didn't grab me like UO did. And to be, quite honest and truthful with everyone, I've never said, hey, UO needs better graphics, me personally. So I don't know if I'm the target audience for this like project, right? But that's okay. I still appreciate it a lot because this, like, to me, as long as someone's playing some sort of UO, that's a win, right? And I think it would be very interesting to see, like, if you invited your friend, right, to play Legends of Ultima, they log in and it's like, oh wow, it's just 3D. It's got nice graphic. There's no, as opposed to the 2D. You log in, you're like, dude, you playing back in the 90s, man? This sucks. Right? Stuff like that. So I'm super curious. I know this intro is a little bit longer than normal, but this is a bit of a unique project where there's a lot of things getting to the finish line. So once again, Stimwalt, thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I hope you guys sincerely enjoy this episode. Don't forget, I stream on Twitch. I'm also going to be streaming on YouTube once a week, trying to gather there. I really want to switch over to YouTube, so if you guys are looking for a way to support, the podcast, jump on Twitch, throw me the free, Amazon Prime subscription. I truly appreciate it. That's something that, if you have Amazon Prime, it's free. You don't have to do anything. But please send me an email as well. Let me know if you've tried Legends of Ultima. Have you followed the project? Will you be playing it? Definitely keep me informed and let me know. Thanks, guys. Catch you next time. All right, guys. I am here with Stimwalt, and this conversation, I think, has been perhaps months in the making. I don't even know, but maybe more than that, right, Stimwalt? I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. We've been talking for a while, so.
Yeah. So I'm absolutely thrilled to have you on. So first of all, thank you for your time for coming on here to talk with me.
Oh yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I think what's very unique about this conversation is this is one of the few times where we get to talk to not only a UO player but more of a dev, mind behind it, which I always find fascinating because, in my opinion, I think sometimes developers, coders, whatever, they think a little bit differently than a guy like me who's just playing the game.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that is true. I'd like to think of myself as a player first.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is, Ultima Online really sort of, I don't know, birthed me into becoming a coder. So I was never super interested in programming until I
Right.
played Ultima Online, um,
Oh
because of all
yeah.
this scripting and whatnot. So that actually made me, have an interest in programming in the first place.
Yeah, and so let's get right into it. Where is the origin of your name? What's Stimwalt? What does that mean?
Oh, so Stimwalt was actually a name that I used sort of after my PK era.
Okay.
So it's a pretty long story, but I started off originally. I was watching my brother play a game, an online game at home,
Okay.
and I was playing Warcraft, Diablo 1,
Yeah.
Doom on my Pentium 2 Celeron.
Did it have the turbo button or
No turbo button, but I had
no?
a nice what was it, 28.8 robotics modem, and I was playing
Yeah.
with my friends Warcraft 1. And then my brother came home from Electronics Boutique. I don't know if that's still a thing anymore.
Wasn't it EB
We
Games, right?
It was it EB Games or Electronics Boutique? I don't even remember. I
Maybe
just
that
know we
was the
called it.
original name. Yeah, you might be right.
Yeah, I just know we called it EB for short. And so he came home. It was like one Friday night, and he popped out, opened the CD that had this like orange dragon on it. I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
And he logged in, and his character's name was Siegfried. I'll never forget it. And I guess he started in Cove, and he ran to the Orc Fort. And I was just watching over his shoulder. I'm like, "What is this game?" And he's like telling me as we go, like, "Oh, this is an online game. Like you can play with, thousands of people." I'm like, "What?
Right.
Thousands of people?" I'm sitting here doing a direct connection over Warcraft with one
Yeah.
person
Right.
while I'm on the phone with him. And no, but so he walks into the Orc Fort, right? And suddenly he gets fireballed by 4 red mages that were hiding there. And then I watch him as he's like, raging at the computer while these guys are looting his corpse and just putting all of his stuff in their backpacks and like taunting them. And like he basically gave up on the game that day. And I
Wow.
immediately sat down, created a character in Minoc, and tried to go over there and kill those guys.
Awesome.
Like
Okay.
that's literally how my UO experience began, was vengeance.
Well, and I think and I guess I find this extremely interesting is back then, there really wasn't like ridiculous, guerrilla marketing online to get a game out there. There wasn't, going to YouTube and saying blank game review, right? That didn't exist.
Right.
I mean, it was really, and this is so wild to me. How could this be word of mouth for millions at the peak?
I mean, it's just totally crazy how it all worked out. I mean, and then just through word of mouth, people would go to school. I went to middle school, told all my friends about it. They all signed up. We all had this little guild of PK archers, and my first character's name was Hermes. And
Right.
like we'd run around, and this was like what, early 1998. I'm not. How early did you play? Were you in the old school eras?
So I played, I guess after like at the T2X because I played with Delucia.
T2A, yeah.
That I remember, like stealing trying to get the black sandals, stealing the fruit baskets. At that era is when I started. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I love that era too. That's actually one of my favorites. But yeah, we would run around. We had no horses, and
Right.
we just had these heavy crossbows with bolts, and like we're chugging along real choppy, like that's how it was with 56K modems, and
Yeah.
we're just PKing people. We had these really crappy tents with a single chest in it. Do you remember that? That may have been before.
No, yeah, I never experienced the tent era. Now, what shard did you pick?
Chesapeake. So that was, for me, was the fastest server.
Oh, so you actually picked based on speed or ping, right? Because you get sorted by ping, or
yeah. Because I mean, I built my own computer back then. I was a bit of a computer nerd just because I was into PC gaming, and the first server I ever pinged in my life was a UO server.
That's interesting. Okay.
And that's how I figured out that Chesapeake was the fastest for me. So that's what I loaded up on. I told all my friends to load up on the fastest one too.
Right. And okay, so you picked Chesapeake. Walk me through when you're creating a character. It seemed like you just wanted vengeance, so you were going more towards a combat style, right?
Yeah. So I mean, my brother just died, and he was mad, and I was like, oh, I can kill these guys, no problem, know. And so I just immediately made an archer because I was like, well, I can't get. They have ranged spells, right? So maybe if I hit them with arrows, I'll have a chance.
Right.
And so I just quickly made an archer, like 50 archery, 50 tactics, and I didn't know anything about the game except what my brother told me.
Sure. Yeah.
And so then I just ran over to the orc fort, and they weren't there. Of course.
Right, and I think it's funny to hear that the orcs have been hiding in the orc fort since 22 years ago. Which
yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was the orcs or not. I can't actually remember if they were orcs or if they were just mages that were, anyway, it doesn't really matter.
It sounds like an orc thing because I don't think back then like stealth PKing was a real thing.
No. I mean, we did it. We learned it from the orcs. I guess it was the orcs. But that's what we did. We started hanging out hidden in areas, choke points, and wait for people to run by and just bam, hit them with heavy crossbow bolts, and they would just, drop. Whether it was their internet connection or they had no armor on.
Yeah, people forget the connection lost message was just certain death.
Or like you're in an intense battle as a PK, and then like your mom picks up the phone, which is the only phone line that you're using to connect to the internet.
Oh yeah.
And then that happened. And I remember like waking up super early in the morning, like 3 a.m. and going downstairs, and my parents didn't want me to obviously play games at 3 o'clock in the morning when I was supposed to be going to school. And so I'd take pillows and put them on top of the modem so that it wouldn't make noise.
Oh yeah.
My God. Yeah. Well, so, I mean, the extent that this game had a draw on me was just, no other game has been like that. really.
Right. And now, how did you pitch to your parents about the monthly fee?
I worked. I
Oh,
actually,
okay.
I mean, I started working at like 14 and a half because in my state we were allowed to work that early.
Sure.
And I was just it was bagging groceries, mopping floors. I was paying for it, and
Perfect. So she
my
was like, "All
parents took
right,
care.
yeah, that makes sense." Okay. Because that, I mean, that was a radical concept, a monthly subscription.
Absolutely,
I mean, that
yeah.
was nuts. So okay, so you're on Chesapeake. What it sounds like you went more an archer play style. What did you end up like really enjoying?
So for like the old school era, we had a small guild of basically friends from my school, and
Yeah.
we were all red archers because heavy crossbows at that time just hit like trucks, and
All
it
right.
just didn't make sense to be anything else at that time. If you wanted to kill players quickly, that was just
Right.
what you were. So we stayed on that meta for a while, until eventually one day we accrued enough wealth to buy a tower, and we placed that tower, and then we bought three smaller tents, and we
Okay.
surrounded those tents around the entrance of our tower. And then we
Nice.
marked runes in front. And what this allowed us to do is to sort of recall back to our house safely, and nobody could attack us.
Right. Kind
And
of like a
if
courtyard scenario. Yeah.
right, and what we would do is if one of us died, we'd place a water barrel on that spot. So if an anti PK tried to come and get us, they would recall into a blocked location. And
Right. They could.
sometimes after we died, we would just sit there and listen to them try to recall in and laugh. But um, back in the day, you had to have a vendor in front of your house to hold your house key because
Okay.
there were no changing of locks. There was no
Right.
lockdowns of any kind. If you lost your key, you lost your house. And that's just how it was. And one day we lost our house. And so that sort
Oh
of
man.
ended that era of just, reckless PKing. And then I made a sort of a, I don't know, not an anti PK, but more of a Guild Wars style Halley Mage in the Second Age era.
Right. Okay. And like now, knowing what you know now, like what really, what does a sandbox kind of mean to you after kind of this experience?
I would say it's about freedom to make choices, having free will, having an ample amount of risk and reward,
Right.
removal of invisible walls, which we see in like every game now. Like you can't go here because you are leaving the missions area,
Yeah.
or
It's
you
on
can't
rails.
pick
Yeah.
this up because it's not actually pick upable. I mean, the lack of physics in a lot of games. I mean, in a title I just played, which I really enjoyed, you walk into your room and there's cups and there's plates and there's chairs, and you can't sit in the chair, you can't pick up the plate. UO
Right.
in its time was just totally revolutionary in that you can almost interact with all of the objects in the world. So in
Yeah.
my mind, I think the physics is like one of the biggest things for a good sandbox.
Well, and I never understood, even to this day, why have some of the things, we see in UO even right now, why haven't they been replicated? It makes no sense to me.
Well, the truth is, when UO first came out, it was a giant pile of bugs. It
Right.
was a lot of really great ideas and a lot of depth and complexity of ideas, but it was a bunch of untested ideas. And so, in the sense of, will there ever be a UO again from like 1998 with, I don't know, 70,000 exploits and
Yeah.
I would hope not in that sense, not the exploit sense, but maybe in the like base mechanics of the game, the things that people enjoy doing, like the play styles, the monsters, the dungeons, the map, with some modernization. Those are things that you can resurrect, if you will, or bring back. But no one is going to want to bring back the ability to break into someone's home and take everything that they own.
Yeah. No,
That's never coming back. So
I completely agree in the fact that and to me personally, I don't think we as players would want the experience we had back then in terms of some
right,
of the real lows.
exactly,
However,
yeah,
like with housing, it's like anytime I play a game, you go enter a house and it's like a loading screen. It's like, well, it's very meaningless, right?
Yeah, you don't want instance housing. That is really, and it's funny because I've heard that said numerous times talking to a lot of people. It's like, why is it that modern games like to instance housing,
Yeah.
or they like to instance everything? And it depends on the performance and the optimization of what they have done, what they have built. In a lot of games like Shroud of the Avatar
Yeah.
by Garriott, I believe, and I could be wrong because I haven't played the game in many, many years, but I think they went instanced housing. And for a lot of folks, that just kind of kills it because
I don't
there's a
know if they may have at one point, because I mean,
did
truth be
they
told, this is my opinion. I don't know this for a fact, but I think it had a huge identity crisis when it came out, right?
oh, definitely, yeah,
And it kind of did this morphing. And I think right now, current day, like as of May 23rd, yeah, it's on a good track. But gosh, it took so long to get there. I don't know
yeah.
if it's too little, too late. But I don't. I would be shocked if it's instance housing. I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I know that I backed it a while ago and it had some things in it that I thought were interesting, and it
Right.
had some aspects that I thought were like too big of a departure from UO.
Yeah.
And I don't remember, I can't tell you for a fact that it has instance housing, but that kind of style of game where you load into your own little world to
Yeah.
store your stuff. I mean, that goes against what Ultima Online really is. I mean, your housing is supposed to be in a persistent state in the world where other players, if they walk into your house, can interact with that world.
Right, and I think
So
to your point is the objects in the world too. Like, I mean, you play World of
exactly.
Warcraft or whatever, it feels so meaningless. Like it's
Right.
that's my opinion. It feels that way, where
No, I agree.
and I don't and then when as I get older in my head, I'm thinking, is it optimization? Is it because these games have millions of I don't know. I don't get it because UO pulled it off rather with maybe lesser graphics obviously, but they did still pull it off, so it should be possible in my mind. But
It
yeah,
is.
no.
It is possible. I mean, we definitely have it. So we
Right.
have housing that's not instant. So it is possible. It gets into, especially with AAA studios, it gets into what makes sense to the business to focus their time on.
Bingo.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, that in a lot of respects for businesses, it puts the players' concerns at the very, very bottom of the list. And they run metrics and numbers, and they make decisions based upon that.
Yeah, sure. Now,
So
you sound like you were, definitely in a PK, mode. Did you ever do crafting or anything like that?
yeah, I was a crafter. I did a little bit of mining. Like when I first started playing, I was a miner,
Okay.
and I was in Minot. That was my favorite city. Um,
Yeah, sure.
and I made a bunch of armor and weapons and shields, and I had a vendor. And I also got into alchemy, sold potions, healing potions, and stuff like that. We referred to that character as our blue mule.
Right.
I'm not sure
Okay.
if you've heard that, but yeah.
Yeah.
So our mules would basically gear up our PKs
Sure. Yeah.
or our PvPers. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, I was primarily into PvP. That was
And
definitely my thing. So
what kind of like drew you just to keep playing UO? Because obviously other games are releasing, right?
yeah, I mean, the biggest thing was the social aspect, which I think some people might find odd. But for me, Ultima Online was like the best chat program that had ever been made up to that point. Like just being in the world and talking to people, and you would just type on your keyboard and the text would pop above your head. I mean, it was just revolutionary
Right.
back in 1998. So the social aspect of it was a big pull for me. Also, like I said, a lot of my friends at school were also playing the game, so that kept me playing it as well. But it's just the risk and the reward. I mean, going into a dungeon almost dying, your heart's beating, you die, and you have this horrible feeling of loss, and then you come back the next day and you're like, well, next time I'll do better, and you just sort of have that constant push and pull of the risk and the reward that was just baked into the game.
Right.
um, so it was almost like a dopamine hit to an extent. Like you kept coming back to it because it had sort of an addictive nature to it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of the social aspect, the power of repetition, where
Yes.
it's like it's hard to explain to people what a Friday night or Saturday night felt like when you were about to log into UO for about a good 8 hours and stay up all night, right?
Right.
It hit differently.
It hits totally differently, exactly. And like there's nothing, I can't even describe the feeling of being chased by three people after you successfully, I don't know, killed somebody or looted somebody, and they've been chasing you for 20 minutes. Your hands are sweating.
Right.
You're still trying to run away from them. They're still in hot pursuit. You still haven't escaped. You've been running for 20 straight minutes. There's no other game like that I've ever played where like you're physically reacting to the game.
Right.
Um, and so
Well,
that kind of thrill is just hard to replicate.
and it's funny because a lot of people will ask, me, hey, why don't you do some of the organized, PvP? And it doesn't do anything for me. Like I've never been a good duelist in the arena, or I never really got into that because it just, it doesn't give me that same risk reward.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, no, I totally get it. I mean, you got people that hang out in the duel pits and like, they're dueling nonstop every day and
yeah,
like, maybe they're the top of that certain scenario, but a lot of folks forget that the field combat of UO is what most people remember fondly and want to replicate. It's not the one-on-one encounters,
yeah,
right? I mean,
because
at least that is for me, maybe
yeah.
for you too.
Well, to me, if I want a true arena experience, I'm going to play a AAA MMO where
Right,
it's
exactly.
very meaningful for me to be top whatever, right, out of millions. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I would do. But it doesn't, like, for instance, last night we had an encounter with the orcs, and there's just certain things that unfold that I've just never been able to replicate, even to this day. And it's so fun because, and I love the field combat of just UO in general because I never know what is
Yeah.
coming around the corner. I don't.
Yeah, it's different every single time, and that's what makes it so beautiful, wonderful, and unique.
Right.
Um,
And I think there's something to be said that, it's very difficult, I think, to find a balance in these games, to keep people interested, keep risk reward. When I think about it in a very, larger sense, UO is a huge pain, to try to manage
Absolutely.
or anything.
Oh, absolutely. And like just trying to teach it to someone else. I mean, have you ever tried to show someone who's never played a game like UO or UO before, like just how to do something? It's hard. I mean, you're
Right.
like, well, no, first, what you have to do, you have to go to this vendor and you have to say vendor buy. I mean, you could click on it and go to the vendor buy option, but just type vendor buy. Okay. And then when you go to the bank, just type bank and hit enter. Oh
Yeah, I
no, you don't have to walk up
remember.
to the guy. So there's so much like, minutia and
Yeah.
nuance that if you have to put it into words to explain to someone that's new, it it's very complex.
Well, and I remember showing my son, and it was like I was getting frustrated explaining it, because of how outrageous. Oh, he's like, oh, can I just click this to heal myself? And now you need band aids. He's like, oh, what do you mean? How do I get band aids? And so, and it like ravels into this super complex rabbit hole where I'm like, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, exactly. It is a lot. And the depth of systems, and Ultima Online was really sort of the, I don't know, the not the reimagining of the original Ultima games, but sort of their MMO or the multiplayer take on the Ultima game. So a lot of it was derived from those older games.
Yeah.
And they just put it all into one giant, MMORPG sort of Dungeons and Dragons online feel, and that's what
Right.
Ultima Online became. But a lot of those systems, they were buggy, they were filled with exploits. I mean, do you remember some of the housing exploits? Or
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I still play with Ash Chopper, so
oh, okay, well there you
he
go.
he's literally in our guild, and we're he's actually now. It's very funny. He is migrated from an elite I don't know bug exploiter, and he's pretty much the quartermaster right now for the guild. He makes our armor. He mines. I mean,
That's funny.
it's so funny how like just it's just changed over the years, and you know it's wild to have this experience even to this day. It's just it's so crazy. But yeah, I do remember a lot of those kind of interesting exploits.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you a couple just off the top of my head because I was a bit of a collector of exploits back then. Do you remember how you could open up moon gates and anything would go in, anything at all,
Like you could gate
monsters?
it.
Yeah. So like
Ah,
we would go to like level 4 covetous or level 4, shame, and we would gate dragons to the choke point of like the Brit graveyard, and then we
right.
would recall into the other side, and like all the newbies would be running away from the dragons as we would like pelt them with arrows on the other side. And it took OSI like, I don't know, 6 or 7 months to finally patch moon gates to not transfer monsters. I mean,
Wow.
it was crazy. You could release dragons if you had tamed them in town, and the guards wouldn't kill them immediately. They would just
Right.
kill. Um, the mages in wind would deal no damage to you because at that time the magic in town wouldn't deal any damage to you, but you could GM off of them in 2 days. So we all used that on our PKs to get GM resist in 2 days, and
That's
then in
crazy.
PvP we were just incredibly powerful. And oh my god, do you remember when deers had no pet slots and you could just
No.
keep taming endless amounts of deers until you had an army of 40 deers?
So I didn't, and it's funny because like on Ask Chopper's site, I never could get in, like, because I never had a bug to submit, so I could like see the
Uh-huh.
private stuff. So back then, I didn't really know anyone that was like exploiting or had any good bugs. So I would have definitely used them for sure, but I just didn't know about them. I mean, I knew they existed, I just didn't know what they actually were. It was like some closed guarded secret.
Yeah, I mean, it was when you were playing UO2 back on Chesapeake. It was certain guilds knew them, like the KOC Keepers of Chaos. They were my buddies, Oinland, OIN, ZS, the Death Jesters. These are all Chesapeake guilds. Just wanted to name them since a lot of them are still around, still active.
Right.
But yeah, they would collect these exploits and share them, and man, they had an enormous amount. I mean, you could break into homes with the summon demon.
Oh
All you would do
wow.
is run to the opposite side of the demon, or run to the opposite side of the house with the demon standing in front of the door, and you'd say, "All follow me," and the demon would open up the door even if it was locked. And
Well,
then
Chopper said this is the best bug he was never able to replicate. Someone like submitted it. He said there was a way to make a house instantly IDOC.
wow, no, that's new. I haven't
I
heard that one.
don't.
That's
Well, he
cool.
was never able to,
Do it.
confirm its
Yeah.
existence because it just didn't work for him. But I'm like, maybe it worked for a short time because that would have been a damn near game breaking.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you could stack blacksmith aprons on top of each other and just run up them and jump over the gate of the double forgery or the large house with the patio.
Okay.
You could
Wow.
do it. There was a Moongate bug where you could put sacks of flour all around you and cast Moongate, and the gate would open in front of you. So you would enter, mark another rune, and rinse and repeat until you were under the house. You would log out, log back in, and pop inside the house. I
Man,
mean, the amount of exploits were just unbelievable in the old school era that it was just so damaging to the game.
So I was the guy that was hiding and then repairing for free, thinking I was getting, a one up. That's the extent
So
of my bugs, yeah, stuff.
but like it got so complex. Like we were putting crates in front of our homes to sort of prevent people from breaking into our homes as we were breaking into others' homes.
Right. Well, and it
Because
was interesting talking to like Garrett, where he gave me another spin on this, where he's like, imagine just building a city, you putting all the services you think are going to work, and then inviting 100,000 people to run wild.
exactly, that's what happened. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. So not I don't envy their position at all. But
Oh no,
okay.
it's totally. I mean, it was wonderful, and it was also something that I don't think any game could ever recreate. Is that I don't think any game could ever have those amount of systems, the sheer number of complex systems
Right.
release at the same time that were not fully tested. I mean that it'll never happen again, I don't think. So,
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that.
but
And so moving from, after you guys lost your house, I know you were talking about that. you
Hmm.
know, let's try to change gears more into like modern times. What happened to UO throughout the years? And you don't have to give me a long, drawn out story, but kind of how do we fast forward to like the private shard era?
Yeah, sure. So
Hey guys, quick sponsored commercial break here. This podcast specifically is sponsored by Death Wish Coffee. I want y'all to head over deathwishcoffee.com. Use code Ultima Online. It's a special code that only is available for listeners of this podcast. It gets you a nice discount. Look, the fact is, I'm sure everyone drinks coffee. I know I do. I use this product. I've been using it for about 3, 4 years now. I've been sipping Death Wish coffee. It is unbelievable. If you want to support me, you want to support this podcast, you believe in my vision, let me tell you, Death Wish is basically literally fueling me with coffee to pursue my passion, which is expanding this podcast as far as we can go. So please check them out. And honestly, give me some feedback. Let me know if you guys have tried it. I know I've gotten a couple people have already ordered stuff. Sincerely, thank you. But thank you very much, guys.
I mean, for me personally, there was the T2A era and the Renaissance era, which were both really fun.
Yeah.
Renaissance introduced Trammel, and then that really divided the player base there. And for me personally, the introduction of Trammel was sort of the end of my gaming experience for UO.
Yeah.
It just was because there wasn't the risk and the reward that I liked. We lost a huge amount of players to EverQuest and other games that provided the paladin bubble to
Right.
people.
Well, and
And
that was a bigger Trammel with better graphics.
right.
Really, for all intents and purposes, that's what EverQuest World of War. That's what it is. I mean, just being honest.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah.
Exactly. But the great thing about the private shards, because I did return to the private shards many, many years later.
Okay.
And I think it was like 2012 that I started dabbling in the private shards, and I did Impor Yelm, I think first, which was more of a T2A PvP
Wow. Yeah, I
shard.
remember that. Yeah.
And then I later did UO Forever. I did a little bit of hybrid.
Okay.
And then much later, maybe like only maybe 2 years ago, I tried Outlands as well.
So, what was your
Um,
experience with free shards? Like, what was your takeaway comparing the two?
So I think it depends. I mean, some free shards did more than others. Some free shards would just put sort of a donation shop in the game, and change a
Yeah.
few things, and then call it a server. And then other shards really tried to really change the game fundamentally. Outlands is one that I think has done the best job at that,
Yeah.
like fundamentally changing the game, making useless skills useful. That's probably the thing that I think Outlands has done the best compared to the other shards that I've
Well,
played.
yeah.
But when it comes to PvP, I still think Hybrid's done maybe one of the best jobs in terms of just having a really fun PvP experience. And
Yeah.
from my personal opinion, I like to take ideas from all of these guys because I don't think anyone has really the best ideas. I think that everyone has ideas that may or may not fit sort of into our plan.
I think too, it's the execution, the polish. There's certain things that Outlands did differently, where they took years to beta test instead of
Yeah.
6 months with a couple buddies casting e-bolt. Right there's certain
Right.
things that they did differently that set them up for success. Because this is my opinion. I don't know if we'll ever see another Outlands again. I with this many people playing. I don't know if it'll be replicated like it has been. I don't know, because the
Yeah,
last
I don't know.
time.
I couldn't tell you one way or the other. I mean, I think that what they've done with the custom map,
Yeah,
no other private shard did that. So first of all, that's something that
didn't
only they have done.
Emporium did that?
I
They
don't
had a custom.
remember.
One of
I
them
don't
had a
remember
custom
them.
map.
Did they? Okay,
I
maybe I
know
quit
one of
before
them.
then.
It wasn't hybrid. It wasn't forever. One of them did. But remember, Emporium, I think, like closed, and Emporium 2 came out. It was a
It
bit
could have
of.
been, yeah, it could have been a time when I wasn't playing. So
Yeah.
I may be mistaken about that, but just from my recent memory, Outlands is the only one that did their own custom map.
Yes.
And so that is a huge differentiator from all the other private shards. Um, and so I mean that alone is going to separate them from the rest of those guys. But they've
Right.
also done things with skills that no one else has done either. So I don't want to say it's just the custom map. Um, and I personally played UO Forever for a while, and I actually played with several of the people that you've talked to on the podcast
So what was
already.
your experience?
Gluttony and Sky. I
Yeah.
played with both of them. So, but I guess yeah, if I was to wrap it up, I'd say that all the private shards do offer something that we find valuable, and so our server is sort of taking inspiration from all of them. So we love the private shards. We want them to be successful because them being successful shows us that our
Yeah.
game, can have the draw that we're expecting.
Yeah,
So
and so now we're gonna kind of morph this into another conversation. For everyone listening too, I have gotten no less than 5 messages. Hey, have you heard of Legends of Ultima? What do you think? I get people now. It seems like as we're getting closer weekly. What we're gonna morph into this conversation is now you've kind of heard Stimwalt give his upbringing. Now I want to kind of understand how did this whole project kind of go? And I guess Stimwalt, it might be, I'm going to let you explain it because obviously the one working on it. I would maybe explain this in a lens that people who listen to this obviously understand Ultima Online completely. They
right.
may not understand like Legends of Area and all this other stuff. So do you want to go ahead and kind of give an intro about what you've been working on?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess to start off, I'll explain why I even played Legends of Aria to begin with.
Yeah.
I was looking for a game that was like Ultima Online. I was typing into Google Ultima Online Alternative.
Yeah.
I was typing in like Ultima Online New. And the only thing I could find was a game called Shards Online, which I'd never heard of before. And then I dug deeper and it was rebranded to Legends of Aria. And so then I tried it out. I backed it for like $20 or something.
Yeah.
And then I tried it out and I played it and I was like, I mean, it's sort of like UO, but it isn't. It's like its own sort of game. And
Yeah,
then
it's just like a mini game almost.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then shortly thereafter, I talked to two guys that were trying to create a mod on that platform of Legends of Aria to create an Ultima Online successor game. And then as soon as I heard that that was being done, I immediately joined the team, and that was back in 2017.
And just for everyone listening to understand, think of Legends of Aria like top-down isometric view with like 3D graphics is the best way to
Exactly.
understand this. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's about as close to that as you can get for a 3D engine. And so the Legends of Ultima mod or our game or our free shard, it runs on that engine.
Right.
Um, and so if you ever backed Legends of Aria ever before it became free on Steam, you can play our server for free.
Got it. Okay.
Um,
And so you guys started in 2017. How did this conversation all like get about, or like what's some more kind of maybe behind the scenes stuff we don't know about?
Yeah, so I mean, we really wanted to take this engine and create a modern Ultima Online on it, and so we started like the very first thing I did was I went into the sewers of
Yeah.
one of the starter dungeons that they had, and I created bards like the barding skill
Yeah.
provo, and so I was like coding in the language that the platform uses, and I was getting one spider to attack another, and like the first time that I got them to attack, I was like, wow, this is great. I guess now we're going to make Ultima on
Right.
this engine. That's where it all started. And, our team is completely volunteer. We are supported via Patreon for just the server costs. So
Right.
we don't actually make any money doing this,
Okay.
but we do take donations to keep the servers running because those aren't free.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And we've been working for about 4 years. And we have a very talented Unity developer who's created the UO map as you know it. It's
Wow.
not
Okay.
exactly one to one, but it does have the towns and the dungeons that you remember. And we're working to flesh out the entire world and also add our own additions to the world, new islands, new dungeons, new regions that will all be inspired from Ultima lore, original Ultima lore. And
Awesome.
so,
Okay.
like, at a really high level, basically, we've been coding nonstop for 4 years, trying to recreate um, the source code that already exists out there for free for the private shards in a completely different engine. And
And
we reached
oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, and we reached that point about 2 years ago. So we were at what I call like UO code complete about 2 years ago, and then we've been cranking pretty hard on modernizing it to our own flavor,
Right.
while at the same time building the UO map, the dungeons, and our custom assets. So we want to create Ettins, we want to create headless ones. We want to make it so it's UO in all shapes and forms.
Right. Now, how was it like, trying to implement, some of these UO, we'll just say features or stuff like that in this engine? Was it very difficult, or how did that work?
So it wasn't too difficult because we do have a lot of talented programmers on our team, um, but it was time consuming. So I mean, it took us a lot of time to look at some of the original formulas and then sort of convert them into a different language, and then put them into the platform and then test them and make sure they actually work as they should in the new engine. So it wasn't necessarily difficult since we had a really good guide, I guess you
Right.
would say, from the UO source code. We had a really good guide on how to build these things, but it was very time consuming because that source code is mature. It's 30 what I mean almost 30 years old.
Yeah.
How many people have touched it? How many people have refactored it? How many people have optimized it? And that's the source code that private shards use, the emulators. I think it's in C sharp, but
Yeah. Now,
it's just
walk me through, so you got kind of the base, system done. How are you guys tackling bugs and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, so we have a very modern infrastructure. We have, everything that you would need to be successful as a software development company, but we're doing it all for free.
Sure.
And so we fund it through the Patreon if we need those funds. But we have all the infrastructure that we need. Infrastructure as code, and this is kind of really technical, but we have modern tools in order to keep everything tight and protected and backed up, and under a tight lid so that everything is secure.
Okay. And when does this release?
June 20th.
Okay,
So
June 20th. Okay.
in less than a month, it will come out June 20th for players that have already played our server. Since the server has been around for many years now,
Yeah.
they'll be offered a transition that will occur from the old Celador map to the UL map. And if you're a brand new player, then you will just log in on June 20th right into the UO world, and you'll have a certain amount of towns, dungeons, points of interest that you can access immediately. And then in the coming months, we will offer more regions and dungeons and whatnot. And I believe we plan to, a week or two after release, to open up housing.
Okay.
So originally or initially, when people joined the game on June 20th, everybody's going to be sort of racing to acquire wealth. And then after a week or two, we will enable plots for housing. So there's going to be a big land rush when that occurs. And we wanted to make it fair, or as fair as possible.
Right.
And of course, our rule set is risk versus reward, Felucia. So
It'd be
there's going to be some
interesting.
interesting fights.
Yeah, and what is your goal with this project? Like, what is what are you trying to accomplish?
The ultimate goal or the aim of the project is to create a true spiritual successor to Ultima Online. So,
Okay.
not just to remaster the game or recreate it one to one, but to continue the story from where it really didn't start. Like the original Ultima games, they all had very in depth storylines and characters. Ultima Online started with that. I think they had the intention of continuing the stories and the lore, but they kind of just didn't. They focused on features and different kinds of content. So we're going to bring back characters from the original Ultima games,
Okay.
and they will be villains, they will be catalysts, and they will be characters in our game that you may be able to interact with, you may have to fight. There'll be world events. So our ultimate goal is to really start anew. I mean, bring Ultima
Yeah.
Online into the future and tell the story that was never told, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean I'll tell everyone for listening, and I'm gonna talk about this a little bit more. But I have played boots on the ground, logged in and looked at it, and I mean it's as close to a one for one as you could possibly get, from what I could
Well, thank
tell.
you.
And yeah, I do think you guys have, I think, something very special that is, one of one because, and I think we've heard this, throughout. I mean, we're all old and cranky now, but throughout, 22 years, everyone said, well, not everyone, but most people have said, gosh, if it just had better graphics in the modern day, this would be a runaway hit, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I view this as a very interesting test to see, you know, number one, how do people react to it? How do
Right.
you guys manage this? Because this thing could spiral successfully very quickly, and I do think it's such an interesting thing for you because every free shard in current Ultima, right? They go through the same things Garriott and Star Long went through 22 years ago, right?
Right.
And I'm super curious for you on your journey, because you're gonna encounter the same issues, right? It's just, I mean, yes, it's
Absolutely.
nicer graphics, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah, there's going to be bugs. There's going to be exploits. The thing that we have on our side is we have very very good telemetry or logging.
Yeah.
So we're able to drill down. We know if you log into our server, we know a lot about you. We know what you're doing. So
And I
we're
didn't
definitely
mean
gonna.
just so much about the bugs, but I'm saying like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
design, the economy. How do I deal with gold, in
exactly.
5
Economy is
years from
very
now?
very important.
Right,
Yes.
because Outlands is only 2 to 3 years in, I think, right? And they
Hmm.
have some really really good gold sinks where stuff is expensive, and it's good because it
Yeah, yeah. It
keeps
should be.
flushing money out. Now, there's always going to be the guy that hoards everything, never spends a dime. You can't really do anything about that, but it's so complex, at least in my mind, to manage an economy like this over time.
It's very challenging, and the telemetry that I mentioned earlier does help us because we track how much gold people earn per hour. We track how much they make in dungeons. We track how much is in their houses. We track how much is in their banks. We track
Okay.
all money flowing in our economy,
Right.
and we have very very dynamic gold sinks
Okay.
so that it can fluctuate and change due to changes in the economy. And also, our one of our biggest end game things is customized housing. So
Okay.
players are going to dump enormous amounts of money into customizing their houses, and it's going to be definitely one of the most attractive and coolest things to customize in the game. So if you want a giant castle that has all these really rare roofs or windows or walls
Right.
or foundations,
Yeah.
you're going to have to pay a lot of money for them.
So
And that's
you,
just one of the gold sinks, of course.
so you're talking about like lumber current prices right now in real life, right?
Right. It's funny you mentioned that because I had someone come to build a deck or give me
Yeah.
an estimate. And I was like, what in the world? This is just wood.
Yeah. Oh,
But yeah,
yeah. I know. It's that's a rare commodity right now.
but you're
Um,
absolutely right. If you don't have enough gold sinks, the economy gets out of hand. And once the economy gets out of the hand, you lose the players because then there's no player economy.
well,
So
and
we're
then
very aware of
it's
this.
it's it's meaningless. It's like
Yeah,
in
monopoly money, right?
yeah, well, it's like in UO now in OSI, right? It's like, oh well, this goes
Hmm.
for $1 billion for this castle or whatever, and it's like what? Like that just I don't even. I think they call it something else. I don't even remember. Is it a platinum? I don't know. There's some higher currency than over 999.
Silver, platinum. Yeah, they have
Isn't
some
it? It's
different kinds
something
of
like that.
currency.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's gotten just so out of control. Where they've made some major missteps, and even too in some of the private shards. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
people acquire all this wealth, and it's just like it wrecks the system. And I'm very curious to have a follow up conversation in 6 months, a year, just to see
I'd be
how
happy to.
you've because I know you guys are going to encounter things that you couldn't account for. There's no way to know how people are going to play or stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's expected. We totally expect things to come up that we're going to have to solve fast.
Right.
And they're going to have to, retrospectively look back and go, well, that happened here. What else could happen elsewhere? So that's just sort of the nature of the dev cycle to a certain extent. Although we have had a really long early access. I mean, we've
Yeah.
been in early access for 4 years. So I am hopeful that we don't have too many of those issues.
No, I mean, and I can tell you,
Yeah.
just logging in, and playing, I could tell this is a working product. This isn't like, where I think we're beyond the proof of concept,
Oh yeah,
and
definitely. Yeah.
but you know what I'm saying? Because I think like, if you have hey, we beta tested for 4 months with, my cousin Joe and my uncle Bob, and hey, it looks good to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
That happens, right? And then you release it, and it's a complete turd, and you're like, oh, there's all these, but there's a lot of things to say about polish, and we're even
Polish
seeing
takes
that.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, we're seeing that with the new AAA, the New World, Ashes of Creation. I mean, it's
Hmm.
just a time sink.
Absolutely. I mean, you're totally right. And we spend a lot of time trying to avoid those things that happen.
Yeah.
But to say that they won't happen is just not honest. I mean,
Well,
things are going to
yeah.
happen, but we definitely think that we're at a polished state. We wouldn't release our game if we didn't think we were at a polished state. And if you just run around the map, you can run around at 1440p, whatever your graphics card can handle. I don't know if you have a 3080 or what you have, but we're doing like maximum frames at 1440p or 4K
Yeah.
resolution on this map, and it's so we spent a lot of time optimizing this thing.
It
So
really, and just to give you a live, feedback, it really, I drew a lot of parallels to Shroud in a way, where it
yeah,
felt, similar, but it had a lot of the core MUO,
systems. Yeah.
yes, in it, where I was like, this is interesting. I'm like, and my whole takeaway at the end was I was just curious. I'm like, how is this going to play out to scale? Like, how, no one's really experienced
Yeah, it's a
this.
huge secret. People have
Yeah,
no idea that we exist. I'm sure a lot of people that listen to your podcast have no idea about us.
right.
So we're very excited about the future of it, and there's so much more to tell you about it. And it's just funny, I don't know if, if I'll ever have enough time to tell you everything about it,
Yeah.
but I'm really really excited about it. And June 20th is when it releases. Um,
And are you guys going to do like like events and stuff? Like what
oh,
is kind of the
absolutely.
roadmap? You don't have to drill down in detail, but what's kind of you guys' plan?
So, are you familiar with Ultima, the original Ultima lore? Did you ever play Ultima 7
Honestly,
or
no. I
6?
never played before Ultima Online at all. That was my first Ultima
Oh, okay.
experience.
So, I'll just share with you a little bit about it. There's an evil god from original Ultima lore called the Guardian,
Okay.
and there was our hero, the Avatar,
Right.
which I guess would eventually end up being all the players in every individual player is the Avatar.
Right.
And so that character, that evil god, would in the original Ultima series would routinely just try to completely destroy worlds. And his whole
Okay.
mission was to just destroy humanity. So you will see the Guardian on Legends of Ultima. You also see some other minor characters and villains. Cora the Sorceress, you'll see. She's from Dungeon Covetous. I'm not sure if you remember her.
No, but okay. Wow.
You'll also see Morienz, who was the first necromancer. So some of this stuff is like straight from Ultima, but a lot of UO players don't know anything about it unless they played those games.
Right.
And we're going to introduce them as world event characters that like you have to interact with that will do horrible and wonderful things in the world.
That's really interesting. Yeah, no, I'm very just I'm so curious, as to, how this works out because it just answers and checks a lot of boxes that people have been asking for quite a while, but I think it's checking them. I don't know what the best way to say is respectfully, right? Like
Right.
it feels to me
Yeah.
like it's well done, right? Like okay, this makes sense, it's logical, and this has an opportunity to really scale to something big, perhaps. Like, do you guys have do you think you have enough staff right now to accommodate thousands of people, or what is your kind of thinking on that?
Yeah, we do. We definitely have enough staff right now to accommodate thousands. But if we were to reach like, I mean, if we were to reach, UO 1998,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
no, we don't.
Yeah, I don't think.
Realistically, though, I think that we know who our player base is. If we're just
Right.
talking about the people that play the private shards, and I mean the original UO engine,
Yes.
you know that population's not humongous, right? I mean, we're
No,
talking maybe 5,000 people,
I estimate 5 to 10 worldwide at 10,
right? If you include
but
like, right, the whole world.
yeah, but it's still very niche for sure. Yeah.
Sure. But with our game being modern graphics, we have the opportunity to bring in a lot more people.
Well, because it's going to be, hey, I'm playing UO, and then he calls up his friend, hey, man, you want to play with me? And then he logs in, and he's like, okay,
It
he
looks
does
okay. All right, let's go.
right. He has
You know,
no, yeah, he has
because
no
you know how
idea.
gamers are, right? They'll
Right.
judge a game just based on how it looks, which is the worst thing in the world, and it's driven me crazy for years.
Like I
And it's,
know,
go
and
ahead.
this may be something interesting, to know about me. I've never really shared, but I was, I played, and I didn't play for a very long time, but I loved logging into Black Desert Online and just
Yeah.
walking around because it was so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just my graphics were on max. I mean, I played the character, a little bit of the combat was kind of cool, but I never really like, poured 100 hours or 1,000 hours or whatever. But I just
Right,
remember,
right.
walking around, I'm like, man, this is just really cool because that was the experience, I was looking for in that game. It was like just the glitz, the environment, I want to really see it, and I think when it comes down to gameplay, I still, gosh, it's crazy to think, but like I still shear back to UO all
Yeah,
the
and like
time.
that's sort of what we think our game is the marrying of the two.
Right,
So we are doing everything we can with the fullest respect and admiration to the original Ultima Online and all of its game systems,
right.
but we're putting it into a modern engine that can really compete, that can use your graphics card and really work on a high refresh rate monitor.
Well,
So I
I
mean, we're trying to
know,
do basically both things, and what we think is a product that will appeal to many more people. We
and
hope.
I'll have to do is I wasn't looking at my frames when I was playing earlier, but what I'm gonna do
Oh,
is
okay.
when I record my intro, talking about this, I will look at what my frames were because I mean I was at 1440p, like maxed out settings, and I didn't hit any stuttering or lag. It was smooth, for
Yeah.
sure, and it looked, some of it was just. It was crazy. Like you're like, hey, let's cast an energy vortex, and like it
And then
casts it. And
it
I'm
started
like,
attacking you. Yeah.
yes, that's true. And it was just like it did capture a little bit in me where I'm like, this is like this feels very new. This is I like it, and I'm very excited to see what the future holds for you guys because I think
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're
you've
excited.
yeah, you've really, I'm not saying just you, but your team has poured, a lot of hard work into this, and I think it really shows to me.
Oh, we really appreciate it. And of course, it's a team effort. It's not all Stimwalt.
Yeah,
It's a complete team. We have excellent folks on our team, Unity developers, infrastructure designers. We've got game designers. We've got support staff. We've got developers. I'm the marketing PR person as well. Um, we have a complete team. Artists, deco. I don't want to forget anybody, but I probably have.
so you're there
But
just to look pretty like
it's a
me,
team
right?
effort.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm the, I guess I would call myself sort of the voice. Like I get out
yeah,
there and I talk about it. I'm the one that's able to, communicate and whatnot. But I still code. I'm still on the back end.
right.
I'm still creating systems too. But yeah, just to circle back to your original question, since I never fully answered it, Hermes sort of represents the person that I was in Ultima Online,
Okay.
and Stimwalt represents the person who I became sort of
Wow.
after I decided to no longer be that person that was griefing and stealing from people. And so I've actually kept that name and I've used it all the way to this day from Ultima Online.
Wow. Well, I need to come up with a cool backstory or something like that. That sounds like, something in a book, man. I feel real bad about my story.
Nah, man, you got a good story. And
No,
you've done a
yeah.
really great thing for Ultima Online. I don't know if anyone's actually said that to you, but you having this podcast is very important for
No,
keeping this game alive.
I do appreciate that. And I do get, I mean, I don't usually, share them, but I do get emails, usually at least one a week. And, it does reaffirm that, this is something that I'm going to continue to do. And I hope that this is some sort of archive, some weird archive. And when
Yeah.
when I'm in my 50s or 60s, I can look back on it and say, yeah, this is why, we played and hopefully still played, that old. But that's kind of, the goal with this. But okay, and to wrap this up, come full circle, walk me through in June when this thing releases, how do people play? Like, how do they log in or whatever?
Yeah, so there's a website. I'll send all this to you that you can just go straight to the website.
Okay.
The link says play, and you just click on the link. It explains exactly what you need to do. If you were a Legends of Aria backer, which maybe some of your audience was, probably not most
Probably.
of them though.
I think some
But if
maybe, yeah.
some of them were, okay. Well, if they were a backer of Legends of Aria before, then they can just go to the website. You're going to download the installer, and it's going to auto update to the latest. And then you just click on the community tab and you log into Legends of Ultima. It's pretty simple.
Awesome. Okay.
Now, if you were never a backer of Legends of Aria, then you'll have to buy a Citizens Pass for $20 in order to log into our server.
Okay.
We do recommend that if you have the opportunity to download the client and run it that way, to do that, or you can get it through Steam. So both are options for people.
Awesome.
And,
okay.
Yeah, and so we launch June 20th. It's going to be a really, really big day for our passion project. It's been 4 years. It's been 4 years since we started this, so this is a dream come true. It was a dream 4 years ago, but now it's a reality. So really hope to see you guys there, and I'd be happy to come back and whenever you'd like to talk about how it went.
Yeah, no, I much appreciate it. I wish you and your team, the best of luck, and I hope this is an absolute smashing success. So, thank you again, Stimwalt, for joining me.
Thank you, Mustache. Likewise to you and your podcast. Keep going.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right, take care.